which have to be culled out and translated in terms of counseling, and that is your responsibility. So you have a great responsibility on the one side, enriching the field, on the other side, enriching the lives of people outside. So it's not that you can enrich the field and later on you can enrich the people outside, because the problem by that time will be out of hands. So both of them should go hand in hand. So that way your responsibility is greater. And that is where, when you see this, where Western psychology ends, that is where Eastern psychology starts. Because Western psychology sees a well-adjusted behavior as the one where you adjust to the norms of the society. Whereas Eastern psychology says that a healthy adjustment is one where you develop your true nature. Only when you go away from your true nature, a disharmony occurs, an adjustment problem for you occurs, and as a result you are unhappy in life. So their concepts are very different. When I go out of the way to please somebody, to fulfill the norms of the society, I compromise on my own feelings, my own abilities, my own needs, etc. And when my needs are not properly met, I am not a well-adjusted individual, I would be a frustrated individual, then I won't be contributing for your betterment. So that is where, in Eastern psychology you say, well, to love is your basic nature. So you have a positive nature, but at the same time you develop a negative quality due to some reason. Now when that comes, there is a disharmony within yourself. And it is this disharmony which is unpleasant, which is painful, which gives you unhappiness in terms of Eastern psychology. So when you adjust to and try to develop your positive side, not only it contributes to your betterment, your happiness, your satisfaction, etc., it also contributes to the betterment of other people. So the larger society, that's where you talk about the individual consciousness and the universal consciousness. Both of them are the same. Initially we think that they are different, but at large you try to merge with them. When you try to merge with them, everyone benefits. So that is where the Eastern psychology differs drastically from Western psychology. Right, now I go into the concepts and then later on come back to this. So the first one is the concept of counseling. See, the concept of counseling has many negative connotations also in the Indian society. When you tell somebody that when he or she says a problem, when you tell them, why don't you meet a counselor, immediately they say, I am not a mental patient. So mental disorder is different from adjustment problems. So people who have mental disorders, they require psychotherapy. Counseling is not severe. It is for the so-called normal individuals who experience some problem in certain walks of life. Otherwise they are effective, they are normal, they are able to carry on. And counseling is not an easy activity. Many times when students do psychology, when I ask them what do you want to do next, sir, counseling. Because they think that, well, the person is normal, whatever I tell him, he will develop that and I can make a lot of money. That is not the case at all. Counseling is a serious business. Like when a doctor prescribes a wrong medicine, in about half an hour you will get to know the effect and you can take some precautionary measure. Whereas when you provide wrong counseling, it may take weeks, months or years or decades. By that time the person's life would have been ruined and you won't be there to take care of that. So it is not an easy job, it's a very serious business, so we'll have to understand the seriousness of counseling. And in the Western psychology, when they try to define counseling, they try to say that it is a service. They said it is a service because in a commercial, in a material, what it implies, you know better than me as to what service is. I may be better in defining, but you may be better in doing that. So when you say service, you do some activity for the betterment, for the sole benefit of the other person. You don't expect anything from that person. So that should be the attitude of a counselor. Somebody has come to me because I am in a position to help him or her. As a result, my main responsibility is to help him overcome his problem and then enrich the life of the individual. It's not overcome the problem alone, it is to enrich the life of the individual also. So that is my main priority. All the other things are secondary here. So that is why they call it a service. So it is a service offered to an individual who is undergoing a developmental problem. When you say a developmental problem, something in me is preventing my development, my growth, my effectiveness, etc. So it may be my thinking, it may be my feeling, it may be my way of behaving, etc. I may not know what is wrong because I am used to behaving that way right from the beginning. And ultimately what happens, I do not know where I go wrong. For example, there was a peon of mine in my department, a fellow who was not educated, and one day he had some fever. He went to the doctor, and the doctor had given him about 6 tablets and asked him to take one in the morning and one in the night for 3 days. Then he came to me and said, "Sir, if I have all the 6 now itself, I can get cured immediately." So here the thing is his thinking. He thinks that, well, when I take medicine little by little, I'll be gradually cured. If I take all of them immediately, I'll be cured, I'll be back to normalcy, because he doesn't know. So when you try to explain to him, he may not be able to understand what you are trying to say. So here, he may think that, well, my intention is right, because if I get cured earlier, I can cancel my leave, come back to the department, I can be beneficial to this fellow, but this fellow is not understanding my intention here. Whereas he is not understanding the effects of the medicine here, so that is where. So that way, for him, his behavior, there is nothing wrong in his behavior. Whereas for us, there is error in his approach, in his behavior, etc. So that way, for me, it is normal. No one has told me. That is why in our society, people used to say that the parents, the teachers should be role models, because in those days, they were the people available for the youngsters. So if a child sees the father smoking right from the day of his birth, for him, there is nothing wrong in smoking. Because my father has been smoking, and right from the beginning I have been seeing that, and if my father smokes and asks me not to smoke, then what happens? Well, this fellow doesn't want to spend money on my cigarette, that's why he is saying that, so I need not listen to this advice. Then the child asks, well, you are smoking and you are asking me not to smoke, why should I am grown up. Now the father wants to escape the problem right now, but he doesn't realize that he is sowing a seed for the future. So when the child completes school and goes to college, feels he is grown up, first thing he does is to have a cigarette, to feel grown up. And the father scolds him there, but the father is responsible for the behavior now, which they don't realize. So that is where the role model plays an important role. And that's why you can see, when a child from an educated middle class family, if you tell him that he has been taught that, well, murdering somebody is wrong, well, the child understands that because my father has been educated, he is working in an office, something like that. But there is another child from the family of criminals. For him, criminal behavior is nothing wrong, because he has been seeing people around his place doing it day in and day out. So when you try to initially explain to him that, don't you think it is wrong? He would say, it's a profession like your profession. Maybe my father is better, in just one stroke he kills, but through your lectures you kill hundreds of people gradually. So you are a more serious criminal rather than my father. That's how he would look at it. For him, there is nothing wrong in it at all. So that is where, when you deal with criminals in prisons, it's more challenging, but it is worth it. Because you will have to make them understand how it is harmful to people, and how it can harm you also, and why you have to change it, and how you can do things in a more useful way for everyone. So as a result, anything that prevents one's development, one's growth, one's satisfaction, one's sense of achievement is a developmental problem. And all of us do experience developmental problems. But most of us know the resource. All of us have the resources within us. But most of us are aware of the resources, you make use of it and you are able to solve your own problem. But there are some people, either they are not aware of the resources that is there in them, or they do not know how to make use of them. It is such people who require professional help. Not every individual would require counseling, that's not the case at all. So that is where the role of the counseling comes in. Now, what type of problems? When you say developmental problems, otherwise they are known as adjustment problems. Now, what is adjustment? In the Western concept, it is defined as the changes in ourselves and outside involving the ability to satisfy most of one's needs and the demands put upon an individual, leading to a harmonious relationship with the environment. One, the first thing, changes. So what leads to adjustment problem or what causes adjustment problem? Changes. Change is constant. Change may be either within you or it may be outside or it may be both. Like when you are a student, you sit there, if you feel like you listen to the lecture or you keep meddling with your phone or you go to sleep, whatever you want to. But when you come and stand here, you can't do it. Your role is different now. So as a result, your behavior should be modified. You cannot, after becoming a teacher, you cannot say, well, all of you go to sleep and I'll also go to sleep. It cannot be done. It should not be done. Because for your role, it is inappropriate. And keep in mind, role depends on the context. Now, if I come and stand here, and ask you for everyone's name, where you come from, etc., 45 minutes, get over, then you say this fellow has wasted our time. Whereas when I talk to you something on counseling where I am supposed to, then you say he has done his job. Whereas tomorrow, you and I meet somewhere in the train or somewhere, then that time I cannot come and sit and I talk to you on counseling. Needs counseling, so I need not learn counseling from this fellow. Because the context is such. So as a result, changes do occur in us from time to time. Some of them are observable, many of them are not observable. Like for instance, when you learn a concept now, during this 45 minutes lecture, if you have learnt one concept, a change has occurred in you. Next time you are going to modify that. But so, as a result, the change is not observable for outside, but at the same time a change has occurred in you. And that is why when you have undergone the course on counseling, you would have understood many of your limitations also. Now, when you go back home, your family members have observed you having a particular style or particular temperament. You would have been a short-tempered person. Whereas now you are happy that you have understood, you have changed, and I am going to make my family members happy. You are not going to, you are going to shock them. Because when you try to go and very tolerant, etc., all of them will go away from you, go shut the door and keep, what happened to this fellow? 1 week ago he was normal, now he is abnormal. Only now you become normal. Because they were not prepared for such a change in you. Yes, for them it is a sudden change. If something has happened suddenly, they don't understand the process that has happened within you. Then they will say, well, are you okay? Are you healthy? Did you have enough sleep there? Did you have good food? Well, shall I get you some tablets to sleep? And you can take some rest, etc. Then you are irritated, you go back to your older thing, then you have come back to normalcy. So for them, this is normal. That is not normal. Because they are not positive behavior for them to realize that you have changed for the better. That will take some time. So we cannot expect immediate results. See, human problems, let's say for example, if you are 30 years old and you have the difficulty for the past 20 years, your problem is 20-year-old. You cannot expect to solve the problem overnight. That is dangerous. That cannot happen. Human beings change slowly, and that is the reason why life is more and more difficult for us now. As you grow older, you become more and more insecure. Why? Your own life is not under your control. The traditional Indian society that way was very secure. Because as you grow older, physically you may become weaker. But The oldest person is the head of the family, so everyone listened, whether they agreed or disagreed with him or her, everyone listened to that and they followed the directions of the eldest person. So the person psychologically felt secure. Whereas today, as you grow older, on the one side you are becoming physically weak, on the other side you say that you see that your life is not under your own control and your child is waiting to throw you into the senior citizens home also. The use and throw culture for inanimate objects have come to human beings also now. And that is and for the attitude, there is no point in blaming the youngster. The parents are responsible for that. You inculcated that attitude in the child without realizing that it's going to come to you. That is an unfortunate thing. So as a result, changes occur, but we don't realize. And when you deny the change, that is when adjustment problem comes. For example, you may be the youngest person in the family. So even at this age, your family members may treat you like a child. And when there is a new family has come in the neighbor's family and there is a child of, let's say, 5 or 6 years old. And the child comes to you and calls you auntie. Then some people get it, don't call me auntie, I'm as young as you are. You are denying reality now. The child sees you as auntie, but you are not willing to accept that you are an auntie. The child runs away, brings some more children, then call you granny. Now when I call you auntie, you are angry. Now what are you going to do about it? Now ultimately, you become unhappy. Why? You refuse to accept reality. According to the child, you are an auntie. Maybe for your elder family members, you may be a child, but as far as this child is concerned, you are an auntie. That is reality. But you refuse to accept reality. So when you refuse to accept and you say that the child has irritated you, no, you have irritated yourself. On the other hand, if you had accepted, well, I'm glad someone has given me promotion as an auntie, come, I'll enjoy your company. Your relationship actually strengthens, you feel happy, you make the child happy, that is spirituality. That's how it has to come. Because you accept reality, one. Number two, the accepting of reality makes you happy. And for accepting the reality, the other person, the child has given you the opportunity to accept the reality. So the child has made you happy. So both of you can be happy together. So that is how it needs to be. So when you deny reality, that is when adjustment problems come in. And another thing is setting of priorities. Everything cannot be perfect. From situation to situation, you will have to set priorities. When you come here for the classes here, this is your priority. Maybe your friend's wedding or etc. Well, that can wait. You can go back and you can see the person. Whereas when somebody is very seriously ill at home, then you will have to go back immediately, attend the classes later on. You can postpone this. So you will have to set priorities from time to time, and setting priorities no textbook can teach you. Because what is important for you may be unimportant for me. So that way you will have to learn to set priorities. That comes only through experience. And experience and exposure are different. Exposure is you are shown something that gives you knowledge. But experience is you perform that through which you acquire the skill. For example, you switch on the TV in the morning. A chef from a 5-star hotel comes and says, today we will discuss how to prepare this particular dish. So you had no idea about the dish earlier. Now when he says that, immediately you sit there with a paper and pen. Then he says half a glass of this. Then note it down. 2 teaspoonful of this. Note it down. Then so much of this. Note it down. Once the program is over, now you have knowledge. The information required, how much, what are the ingredients required, how much are required, how to make them, etc. Then, when you decide to prepare the dish, you keep the tumbler ready, you keep the teaspoon ready, and then you measure that, you put it, and then you cook. Once it is over, even you can't eat it. But your mother or grandmother, who is an expert in cooking, comes and throws the tumbler and spoon away with bare hands, throws the ingredients in it, and it's much better than your scientific cooking. Now, why does it happen here? It's not that you cannot cook. You did not have the opportunity to cook earlier. Experience. See, exposure is you saw somebody cooking that. That doesn't give you the skill, that gives you only the knowledge. You do that. When it has not come out well, don't get discouraged. There is an improvement. You have made the dish. That itself is an improvement. Where did I go wrong? You can't correct everything. Again, next time it won't be perfect. But what is the first thing that I have to correct? Last time I added more salt. This time the salt should be reduced. Then again, try to see. It's not good. Then next time what do you do? What should I correct next time? So when you do it over a period of every time, look back. Try to see where you were wrong. Rectify that. And then there is an improvement. Again, look back. So that way you correct. Then you master that at some point of time. So that is the way you need to do that. One day I was in my friend's place, and the friend's daughter, who was about 8 years old or so, came to the father and said, "Dad, get me this dish from the hotel." The mother came running from the kitchen and said, "Well, don't get her, because day before yesterday I prepared the same dish. She didn't eat at all. She threw it in the dustbin. Don't get her." Now there is a prestige issue between the mother and the daughter now. Because the mother has not understood the child now. That is the reason. The mother prepared it day before yesterday, but the child did not like this. Whereas when the child asked for a same dish from the hotel, well, the child likes that taste, which means the taste that is being prepared in the hotel and prepared by the mother are different. The child does not say your cooking is inferior or you are inferior. The child says indirectly that I like the taste. Now, the mother said that, no, you would waste because you did not eat, so don't get her. Then the child tried to convince the mother, no, I like that taste. Then immediately the mother said, well, in the hotel, he put all the stinking stuff and you like only that, and I put all the good ingredients, you don't like that. The child immediately turned back and said, you do not know how to cook, and hereafter don't cook on me, and that will have the food. See, she asked for a dish, she said she liked the taste. Now it has got to the extent that you don't know cooking at all. A small point grows into a problem here. On the other hand, if the mother had understood this and tried to see what taste is there and how I can bring that taste in my cooking, if she tries to bring that, and once if she learns to bring it there, then she will say, Mom, prepare this for me. When the mother says, I am busy today, why don't you get it from the hotel? No, I like yours. Only that is the solution. And again, I would say that is the spirituality. Because you try to connect it with the other individual and then try to see how you can bring in harmony between you two as well as within yourself also. If I learn to do it better, my child will like that. If my child is happy, I am happy. So I'll do it in such a way that the child will enjoy my cooking. So these are all simple things which you try to connect. Spirituality doesn't mean only God and religion alone. It is only connecting with people outside and accordingly doing it in terms of their welfare, at the same time taking care of our welfare also. That is what it is. So that way, and that is the thing you need to do. Because in counseling, I'll be coming to that concept, you'll have to translate things in terms of spiritual aspects. The Western counseling provides opportunity only for the development of the individual, focuses only on that person. So what gives you happiness, what gives you satisfaction is good enough. But that is not the case as far as spiritual aspect is concerned. It should be good for you, it should be good for others also. So that is how it has to be. And so adjustment problems are common. Only thing what it implies is that we need to develop the skill. How are we going to develop that? Developing it by performing it on our own, not using some other gadget. Like when you love your friend, automatically his birthday gets registered here. You don't write it on a sheet of paper and by heart it. Out of love, it gets registered here without any conscious effort. And on that day when you call your friend and say, well, I wish you a happy birthday, you are so happy because I have conveyed my love to my friend. And your friend is so happy because my friend loves me, that is why he has bothered to remember that, well, I love him. The love strengthens. Whereas nowadays what happens, you store it in your mobile phone, on that day it makes a lot of noise, then you look at it, then oh, today's that fellow's birthday, you call him, a formality is over. It doesn't give you happiness, it doesn't give him happiness there. So that is where never substitute a gadget for something else, it should be only yourself. So learn the skill, and failure doesn't mean you are incapable of learning. Failure means you are yet to learn. You have not learned it so far. So failure should be viewed in a positive way. Failure indicates that, well, here is an opportunity for you. You have not learned it earlier, here is an opportunity right now. Make use of that. Don't try to avoid it. When you see a situation as a problem, you try to avoid it. When you see it as an opportunity, you make use of that. It depends on your framework, your attitude, how you approach the situation. So no one is born perfectly normal with all the abilities, etc. That is not the case at all. It depends on the unfamiliar situations you seek. A healthy, psychologically healthy person is one who seeks unfamiliar situations, try to face and solve one's own problems. Whereas when you shift the responsibility of making decision for you, you are not taking responsibility for your own self. And naturally, it will lead to adjustment problems. So that is with regard to the concept of adjustment. Now, what are the goals of counseling? One of the goals is to bring in a change in the behavior, how you act. Because the change in the behavior here is, since you have been behaving that way, right from the beginning, it may not appear to be wrong for you. But the reaction of others is a feedback to you about your own behavior. If someone is irritated at you, don't ask him, why are you irritated? Ask him, what have I done to irritate him? When you correct that, well, that can be corrected there. So, alter the modification of behavior in the person, because nowadays, you don't have the experience of writing letters. Whereas in the olden days, it used to be there. So when you write a letter, the experience contributes to your development. In those days, when you write a letter, you post it. For the person to receive the letter, it may take 2 days. And the person would write the reply only on the 3rd day and another 2 days. So you'll have to wait minimum of 5 days. So that gives you patience, tolerance, etc. You are willing to wait. Yeah. Then what happens? When the telephone came, at that time you have to make what you call as a trunk call. I do not know how many of you know that. When you make a call, you may have to wait for 4 or 5 hours. Right. So that was better than waiting for 4 or 5 days. Right. Then when you are used to that, no, you are not willing to wait for 4 or 5 days. The STD came. Straight away the call goes to the individual. When it came, only if the person is at home, I can talk to him. If he is not there, I cannot talk to him. The mobile phone came. Now, when the mobile phone comes, anything that occurs to you, immediately you call him. You become more and more impulsive. You don't become reflective here. Yeah, you don't see the consequence. Whichever is sensational, well, immediately you forward it without looking at its consequence. So, when you had the letter, the tolerance, the same way, at that time when you had to make a call, you had to dial every single number separately. Then pushing each one was painful. Then the button system came. Pressing 8 buttons became painful. Then pressing 1 button came. Then pressing 1 button became painful. Touch screen. Then touching is going to be painful. If I think of my friend, the call should go. Then thinking will be painful. If another machine can think for me, then what is life? See, it is fascinating true, because what you cannot do, the other thing does, but it makes you more and more vulnerable, psychologically weaker. So technological advancement is increasing human problem. I am not blaming technological advancement here. Misuse of technology by us. We try to substitute the machine for our efforts. And that keeps even human beings away from each other. That's what is happening nowadays, and ultimately you see each human being as an enemy, as a competitor, and as a result to be away from them. That type of an attitude unfortunately has come. Again, spiritually, you need to tell people that connecting to people is more beneficial rather than connecting through machines. Only you people are capable of doing that. So you have a great role in the society for the future. So bringing in behavioral changes is one. Another thing, establishing and maintenance of relationship. See, establishment of relationship take efforts, and maintenance takes more efforts. Because you will have to spend time for the person, efforts for with the person, etc. And there will be misunderstanding. There will be misunderstanding, there should be misunderstanding. Because misunderstanding is difference between two people. When two people get married and if everything is smooth for 6 months, something is seriously wrong, at least with one of them. Because with your own parents you differ at some point of time. Whereas here is a grown-up person who has come into your life in the middle of your life when you are grown up. So there should be difference in perception. When there is difference in perception, there will be problem. But how you resolve the problem is important. Divorce is not the solution for that. I do not want to accept difference, so I go away from people. That should not be the case. I will compromise for you, you will compromise for me. That is mutual, and that is spirituality again. That is that. So commitment to a relationship is an important aspect. That needs to be strengthened. That is weak in the present day society. That needs to be strengthened, and you have a great responsibility in that. Then to enhance effectiveness. What do you mean by effectiveness? Effectiveness depends on the end result. And that is where our perceptions, our attitudes have become distorted in nature. We forget that main goal. We take something else as the main goal. So our perceptions are highly distorted. And as a result, nowadays we have become so materialistic. You are evaluated in terms of the material possessions that you are able to make. If you have a high salary, you are in a good job. Whether you are happy in the job, that's secondary. Then why should you run after money? And the same way, if it is a hospital, well, if the hospital makes a lot of profit, that is a good hospital. If a school makes a lot of money, that is a good school. That is not the case at all. When they make money, that means they make you suffer more and more. Because they are supposed to contribute to the betterment of people, not the profit. Once I was talking to a group of counseling students where I was talking about the role of the school, the family, etc. on the developing personality of the child. A teacher from a school raised a question. Sir, I have a question. I asked her, what is that? I know of children from good families studying in reputed schools having psychological problem. They turned back and asked, what do you mean by good family? A well-to-do family. So when it is a well-to-do family, the parents were busy making money, they were not busy with the child. They were busy outside. So the child is emotionally deprived, socially deprived, cognitively deprived. Ultimately it leaves a scar in the developing personality of the child. That's why in child development, two related questions are usually asked. I think my time is over. Can I take another 10 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, get the permission from your coordinator also. Because he has given the order that the time is 45 minutes. Anyway, thank you.
Another half an hour.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. So, there are two related questions that are raised. Are there certain experiences which are to be provided during the formative years because they will contribute to the personality development of the child at a later stage? The other question is, are there certain other experiences which are to be avoided because they may permanently scar the developing personality of the child? The answer for both the questions is yes. Certain experiences are to be provided. The child requires love and affection from the parents, which is not provided by the child. When the child is deprived, that he becomes vulnerable. What do you mean by vulnerability? Your perception becomes distorted. I give you an incident. In my department, I was initially with the distance education department, where our classes used to start at 8:30 in the morning, and afternoon students used to do practical. The next day they will have to submit the assignment the next day. So students used to come, I used to be in the department at 8 o'clock, and students used to come submit the assignment in my room and then go to the class. After the class they will come back and take the assignments. So one day I was just there at 8 o'clock as usual. I was reading some book. A lady from a big city, should have been, she may be around 25 or 26, an adult, not a child, entered my room. As she entered, she said, "Good morning, sir." I said, "Good morning." I didn't even look up. Then I asked her, "Where are you staying?" She mentioned the name of the place. And then I asked her, "Did you have your breakfast? What did you have for breakfast?" There was no answer. When I looked up, she was in tears. I asked her, "What is that?" She said, "Sir, even my family members don't have so much concern for me. You have so much concern." My question was not out of concern at all, I tell you the truth. Because in the class there are 100 people. If I start crying for them, I will be crying every day, but only one student will be crying each day. But I will be crying throughout my life. There is a boundary. I can sympathize with her, give her 10 minutes time, you go have your breakfast, come and join the class. Only that much I can do. But this person interprets as concern, which in reality it is not concern. It's a casual courtesy call, a question, that's all. Because there has been so much longing in the person for such a type of concern which is not there in many urban families. Because in the olden days, in our place at all, when we used to have dinner, the whole family will wait. If one person had gone out, all the others will wait for this person even though they would be hungry. Because that is a concern. You communicate your concern and the person who had gone out would be rushing back because everyone will be waiting for me with hunger, so I'll have to go back. Concern for each other. That was promoted, that was developed. Whereas today you cook, you leave it on the table, you don't even know whether the other person had his food. One. Number two, in those days there was no TV. So when the family sits together, each one shares as to what the child will share what happened in the school, the father will share what happened in the office, etc. It is not sharing incidents, it is sharing feelings. Such sharing of feelings strengthen the bond between family members. Whereas today, you remain under the same roof as strangers. Why? Because their priorities are different. Except the child, everything else is a priority. Unfortunately, the child is psychologically disturbed. So coming to the question here, when the family is busy making money, so the child is not given what he needs at a given point of time. Then a reputed school. I asked, what do you mean by a reputed school? A school which has produced 100% result for the past 50 years. That is the reason why the child has psychological problem. Because a school which focuses on 100% result does not treat children as human beings at all. Children are treated as machines, not even animals. They are treated as machines, so their feelings are killed and ultimately they live like machines. So, and I came across a study where they compared the mental health of students of government schools and public schools. The finding showed that the students of government schools had better mental health than private schools. So, private schools may help you to get marks, but getting marks does not contribute to happiness in life. That actually is detrimental to the development of the individual. Again, spiritual counseling, you will have to communicate to people outside. Because they will have to see what is right, what is appropriate. Their perceptions are distorted here. And you say that making money will contribute to happiness. But you are busy making money. By the time you make a lot of money, you see that your children don't love you at all. Then you say, I did a lot of things for you. What did you do? I got you the latest smartphone, I got you the latest computer, I got you an air-conditioned car, an air-conditioned room, etc. Well, you got everything. And I'll also get for you, go to the old age home. There will be an air-conditioned room, there will be a nice dining hall, there will be a home theatre, there will be a temple, there will be a prayer hall, but no love and affection. Because you never gave me, so I do not know. So what you gave me, I am returning back. So, when children have inadequacy, the defect is in parenting. You need to provide quality time to the children. When I say quality time, you cannot have a schedule and say every day 9 to 10 will be quality time. No. Quality time is when the child needs you, you have to be there for the child. Like one day he may have a problem with his friend and the friend would have hit him and the child may come back, not out of physical pain, Well, we were so close friends. Today he scolded me. I'm really sad about that. The child needs consolation now. You can't say, I'll cook, we'll eat the food, and then after 10 o'clock, I'll console you. That is not, I need consolation right now. That needs to be, when there is a wound, medicine has to be applied immediately, not after 2 days. And another day, the child would have done well, maybe in sports, maybe in some other activity, and he may be happy to come and share it with the parents, because I know my parents are my well-wishers, they will be happy. But parents are not there when I'm there. As a result, even when he gets a prize, the children don't tell the parents, because you never listened to me, you never had time. So you put me in the hostel, I'll put you back in the hostel. It's not a vengeance. That is, we have been a role model like that. So as a result, I also give you all those things, because he doesn't know love has to be given, because love has been given only in the form of smartphone, in the form of TV, etc., not in the form of love. So love has to be communicated as love, not in terms of objects. And as a result, because of the deprivation, there are many vulnerabilities. Youngsters have many psychological problems. And I told you this lady was from an urban area. If I had asked the same question to a lady from a rural area, because even now in rural areas the emotional needs are satisfied. If I had asked the same question, she would have answered my question. But she would have gone back, called her friends and say, well, don't go to this fellow's room alone, because this fellow seemed to have some ulterior motive. He's not here to know whether we had our food or not. That's none of his business. His job is to teach. Because her emotional needs are fulfilled at home, so there is no vulnerability. She sees reality as reality. Yes. So that is what I mean by vulnerability. So when there is a deficit in the development of the child that causes vulnerability, distorts perception, leads to a lot of problems in the individual. So that way, that's another goal of counseling. Then the next one is promoting decision making. When you say decision making, there are many alternatives in life. You will have to focus on the right thing and choose the right alternative, which will improve the quality of life. And one example is when I happen to interact with the young college students. Sometimes the discussion goes about marriage. When I ask them what type of a life partner you want, some of them say, I want a handsome fellow, a well-educated fellow, a very understanding fellow, very affectionate fellow. Okay, do you have all these things? I don't have, but I would like to have. So unrealistic. See, it's quite human nature to want everything positive under the sun. Whether I have it or not is a secondary thing. Right. Then, when parents try to say that everything is not possible, and then you'll have to compromise on certain things, because parents say this out of experience, what would be appropriate? Then immediately argument comes, if there is no such fellow, I do not want to be married. That again is not the right answer. Whereas some of them said that, well, my parents know better, so whatever they decide, I'll go by that. That means you are not taking responsibility for yourself. It is those people, when something goes wrong in their marriage, they keep blaming the parents. It's only because of you I'm suffering, which actually is not the case. You have made the decision. So you need to when you make a decision, when something goes wrong, try to find where it went wrong, try to rectify it next time. So decision, there are different things. Only thing we have to focus on the right thing. Again, your meditation should help you in focusing on the right thing rather than the wrong thing. For example, a teacher was teaching children about calculation, addition, in a class. And after the class, she asked a boy, well, I give you a problem, you tell me this answer. Then she said, I give you an apple, I give you one more apple, I give you another apple. How many apples will you have? The child counted with the fingers and 4 apples. The teacher said, listen to me carefully. I give you 1 apple, another apple, 1 more apple. How many apples? 4 apples, sir. Now, the teacher was frustrated. See, look at the state of mind of the teacher. I try to teach him, I try to explain, I try to elaborate, the child is unable to understand. Now the fault is not with the child, the fault is with me. I don't have the capacity to make the child understand. But many times we blame the child. Now, when you try to explain, even at home when we help children doing the homework, when you don't understand, they start playing. And the parent is already in frustration, immediately they blame the child, you keep on playing, that is why you don't understand. But the child has started playing because he is unable to understand from what you are saying. That is reality now. Now you should say, well, how can I develop my teaching ability so that the child will understand rather than blaming the child there. Because you can see teachers saying, in my class, 98% result, they lift the collar. What it implies is that the 98% is because of my teaching. If that is the case, the 2 is because of your teaching only. Still your teaching has inadequacy. Because you are supposed to teach every single student in the class. So, when you take credit for the 98, you have responsibility for the 2 also. And usually teachers feel happy with students who do well in their studies rather than who are poor. But it should be the opposite. It is the poor children who are going to make you better teacher rather than the intelligent students. Because when they are unable to benefit, there is inadequacy in your teaching. When you learn to teach them also well, you are becoming a better teacher. Otherwise, you are not going to change at all. It is this challenge, this problem which is going to be a better teacher. You need to develop. That is an adjustment problem that you will have. So, ultimately what happens in this situation, the teacher was frustrated. Then he thought for a moment. He realized that mango is the favorite fruit of the child. Then he said, well, forget apple now. I give you 1 mango, I give you 1 more mango, I give you another mango. How many mangoes will you have? There was a smile on the child's face. He counted and 3 mangoes. Now the teacher was happier. Well, I am a great teacher, I have made him understand. Then let's go back to apple. I am giving you 1 more apple, 1 more apple. How many apples? 4 apples. The teacher became furious, shouted at the child. The child was in tears and said, murmured, no sir, my mom gave 1 apple for lunch, so there are 4 apples. Now, there are 2 answers, whether 3 is right or 4 is right. It depends on your focus. The purpose or the goal of the teacher is to make him understand the principle of addition, not to find out the number of actual apples. So, 3 will be the right answer. Whereas the child's focus was on apples rather than addition, calculation. So the child says 4. For the child, 4 is right. For the teacher, 3 is right. Now there is a disagreement. That is how disagreements occur. So when a wrong answer comes from the individual, rather than blaming, scolding the child there, how come he says 4 here? Where is he going wrong? How can I correct that? Only then the child can learn. Rather than scolding, shouting is not going to solve the problem here. So that is where decision making involves focusing on the right things rather than many times we focus on the wrong things. If you see in the present day society, many of our perceptions are distorted. For example, when you make a lot of money, we think that we are happy. But only after making a lot of money, you think that money itself becomes a burden for you, leave alone the rest of the things. And you cannot go back and get your happiness right now. So your life is spoiled. Then where do we go wrong? What happens is, when psychological analysis shows that when a society is not, most people are not affluent, very few people are affluent, those people who are not affluent are satisfied in their life. Because I don't bother as to what the other fellow has. The person is more concerned about his own day-to-day survival. He works for that. If he gets it, he is satisfied. He goes to sleep and he is happy. And few people who are affluent are happy because they are able to make better things compared to most other people, which is a reflection of my ability. That is why in those days, when a person bought, let's say, a second-hand bicycle, he was very happy. He would go about saying that I have bought a second-hand bicycle. A second-hand rusted bicycle, he was happy. Today you buy a new car, you don't give that much happiness. The reason was, it depended on the efforts of the other person. Like he saved little by little, in making compromises on certain other important things for him. So he saved little by little, and then when he bought a cycle, it gave him a sense of achievement. Yes, I have worked for that, I have put in the effort, so it is my achievement. It gave him a sense of satisfaction. Whereas today, you don't have to do anything at all. You sit at home, the bank manager comes, fills up all the application, all that you have to do is to sign, and the car company brings the car, leaves it at home. So you don't have to do any effort at all. That's not your achievement at all. So, when the outcome or the end result is in proportion to your efforts, there is a sense of achievement. That strengthens your confidence. That enhances your self-esteem. On the other hand, when everything comes to you in an easy way, that is what is happening in the present. We are making life more and more easy. And as a result, we are becoming psychologically weaker day by day. That should not be the case. An ideal example is, there is an argument or discussion that at a primary school level there should be no examination at all. Now, why does it happen here? Examination per se is not stressful. Our attitude toward the examination mark is stressful. That is the problem here. Examination as such is not a problem. That's a distorted perception that we have. Like when one child has 90 marks and another one gets 85, well, you immediately say, well, only 85. Then the child is humiliated here. He is compared with somebody higher and immediately he is degraded. Imagine a situation, you go to your friend's place, you see your friend's child for the first time. Imagine what will be your questions. You call him or her, what's your name? The child tells the name. Which class are you in? Such and such class. Which school? Such and such school. What rank? When you say 6th rank, only 6th rank. Well, in what way is it going to affect you when he gets a first rank? Or in what way is it going to affect you when he gets a 100th rank? You are not bothered, but you are humiliating the child there. Then the child will be waiting, when will this fellow leave? And next time, when the father says so-and-so is going to come, well, that fellow is coming, then I am not going to be at home. Because the fellow humiliates me. On the other hand, call the child. What games do you play? Do you like this player? Or what programs you see on the TV? Do you like this character, etc.? The child enjoys your company. Again, spirituality. You connect with people. And then even discussing or talking to the child for 1 hour, later on when you leave, should you go immediately, uncle? When will you come back, uncle? Earlier, well, this fellow should not come, whereas now, I want this fellow to come. Again, spiritually you are connecting here. So these are the things we need to see. So as a result, decision making involves focusing on the right things and eliminating the unnecessary or irrelevant things, and that's what your meditation teaches. And that is how, see, meditation usually we teach only the practice, but it should also be applied to specific situations. Only then the person knows. Otherwise, well, when I have a problem, when I have my problem with my wife, sit and meditate. I'll keep on chanting Om. My wife is going to be the same, my problem is going to be the same. That is not the case. Design the situation and learn this, you apply this concentration to my problem, see what are the relevant ones and what are the irrelevant ones, and which one should I solve now, focus on that, the quality will improve. So, you have an arduous task of translating the meditation skills to specific problems.
Yes.
That is not being done now. That's why people practice yoga for months together and then they say my problem is not solved. Why? Because, well, I am not studied, I am worried about my examination. If you are worried about the examination, well, you practice this asana, that asana. The asana is not going to give me knowledge here. Instead, it should help me to focus on the right thing and put in the proper effort. That is important. And that is when meditation or yoga can be made applied. So far, it is being taught only in a philosophical sense. Yoga is widely taught in relation to physical health or in a philosophical sense. So the common man thinks that, well, it is not relevant for me. Whereas 80% of yoga is psychology. So if psychologically, if you translate this, like saying, well, if you do pranayama, it brings in this type of changes in you. If you use this change for this type of context in your life, it would be useful for you. So when you explain the process and the changes that occur, any common man will be able to understand and use yoga in an appropriate way, and it will be useful. So it has to be made applied, and you have the arduous task of enriching the field here. So these are the goals of counseling. Now coming to the next aspect is, with regard, there are many theories of behavior in the Western psychology, like Freud's psychoanalytic theory, behavioristic theory, cognitive theory, etc. Each one focuses on, Freud's theory focuses on the role of childhood experiences. Cognitive theory focuses on the information processing mode in you. And behavioristic theory talks about how you are rewarded, which shapes your behavior, etc. And existential theory stresses on the importance of the goals of in your life. But all are integrated in yoga. So yoga is more holistic compared to the Western theories, and yoga is more meaningful, and as a result, it can be more useful rather than the Western psychology. And as a result, what needs to be done here is, there are a lot of points I wanted to discuss, but anyway, I'll give you the essence of that. Help people focus on the right aspects. Make them take the effort. It is their effort that can solve the problem. Something else outside cannot solve their problem. So they must take responsibility, learn to focus on the right thing, concentrate on the right thing, learn to ignore the wrong things. And a clear and accurate perception can lead to a better thinking can result in a better behavior. And one incident, because many times it is not that our problem, only counseling can be helpful in our problem. If the problem is another person with whom we need to interact, there also counseling can be helpful. Like I give you an example, there is a family friend of ours. This lady was a personal secretary to the general manager of a 5-star hotel. And she had about more than 20 years experience in the job. And she used to be a very cheerful person. And one day when I went to their house, I found her to be dull. I asked her, what is it? She said nothing. Then I persisted. Then she said, well, a new boss has come to me and I'm unhappy with him. I asked her what happened. She said, well, his English knowledge is poor. So when he gives a dictation, there are grammatical errors in the letter. When I point it out, he doesn't straight away say, do what I say, but he just accepts it and then asks me to modify the letter. I modify the letter, keep it on the table, he doesn't go through the letter at all. And when I am about to go for lunch, he calls me and asks me to make certain changes and type it immediately and keep it on the table. When I do that, and after my lunch, when I go back, the letter still is there. And then in the evening, when I am about to leave, he calls me and asks me to modify the letter and type it immediately. It's not happening one day, it's happening day in and day out. Now, the actual problem is with the boss, not with the secretary. But you can't ask her to bring the boss for counseling. She'll be into more trouble. So now, she must learn to handle the situation. She didn't know, that's why she was worried about that. Now, what it implies is that probably the person has a low self-esteem, who is not willing to accept criticism from others. When the secretary says that it is wrong, the low self-esteem gets aggravated. Right. But openly, he is unable to come out with that. So he indirectly says that I am the boss, right, and you are my subordinate. Now, how can she handle that? Like, she can say, if it is like this, it will be more appropriate. Anyway, I leave it to your discretion. When you do that, when you say, give him the assurance that you are my boss, I am your subordinate, then problem will not occur. The trust will develop. Yes. Yes. Otherwise, he will think that you are trying to dominate him and he tries to hit back. That is the problem. So, the problem actually with that person, but you can't change the world. Now you change your approach in accordance with that person. You relate it with the person. Again, that's what spirituality is. So that way, now people keep away from each other, and one of the reasons is competition. When in our yoga center, when we were planning to celebrate the first International Yoga Day, there were discussions and somebody suggested that, why don't you have a yoga competition? Well, nowadays it's being conducted in many places. But I said, in the first class, the first sentence you say is, yoga means to unite, but competition divides. So yoga center should not conduct competitions. It should conduct activities that would unite people. But competition divides people, and since there is a cutthroat competition now, we see fellow human beings as competitors or sometimes as enemies who need to be eliminated. As a result, we go away from people, and so the relationship is strained. We are divided on every respect. Based on gender, we are divided. Based on religion, we are divided. Based on geographical region, we are. All these only show the vulnerability of human beings today. And you have the great responsibility of bringing people together through your spiritual counseling and enrich the lives of not necessarily the Indians, the whole of humanity. And I'm really honored to have been here, and thank you very much for your patience.
1 minute.